In the hush of a moonless night, where the stars blinked like distant memories, and the wind whispered secrets through the trees, David found himself driving alone along a lonely stretch of road. He had embarked on a long journey, determined to reach his destination despite the late hour. The road ahead seemed to stretch into infinity, a ribbon of asphalt that disappeared into the darkness. The hum of the engine and the occasional sweep of his headlights were his only companions, and a sense of unease settled over him. The darkness outside his car window seemed to press in, a weight that made his heart beat a little faster. Despite the unease, he shook off the feeling, focusing on the road and the soft glow of the dashboard lights. As the clock on his dashboard blinked 1:13 a.m., David's eyes began to grow heavy. The rhythmic pattern of the road and the drone of the engine created a lulling effect, his eyelids drooping with each passing mile. He reached for his coffee cup, hoping the warmth and caffeine would keep him alert. A strange sensation crept over him, a sensation that he was being watched. He glanced at the rearview mirror, but the darkness outside was empty. He shook his head, attributing the feeling to fatigue and his mind playing tricks on him. Yet the feeling persisted, a prickling awareness that sent a shiver down his spine. His headlights illuminated a road sign up ahead, rest area 1 mile. Relief washed over him as he realized he could pull over and take a short break. The rest area would provide a much-needed respite from the monotonous road and a chance to shake off the feeling of being watched. As he turned off the highway and into the rest area, the eerie silence of the night enveloped him. The parking lot was empty, the dimly lit area casting long shadows that seemed to dance in the moonlight. David parked his car, leaving the engine running to maintain the sense of safety the headlights provided. He stepped out of the car and stretched, the cool night air sending a shiver through his body. The rest area was eerily quiet, devoid of the usual sounds of nocturnal creatures. David walked toward a row of picnic tables, his footsteps echoing through the stillness. As he sat down at one of the tables, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned his head, his heart racing, but saw nothing. He chuckled nervously to himself, chalking it up to his imagination getting the best of him. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, trying to relax for a moment. The sound of rustling leaves and snapping twigs jolted him awake. His eyes flew open, his senses on high alert. He scanned the area, but the rest area remained empty. The feeling of being watched intensified, sending a wave of paranoia coursing through his veins. "Is anyone there?" he called out, his voice shaky. No response came. He pushed himself to his feet, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. He walked toward the edge of the rest area, his heart pounding in his chest. The darkness beyond seemed to stretch into an abyss, an inky void that held unknown terrors. A soft whisper carried on the wind, a faint murmur that sent chills down his spine. "Stay with us." David's pulse quickened, his breath coming in shallow gasps. He felt as if the very air around him had thickened, as if the darkness itself had taken on a malevolent presence. Panic began to claw at his mind, urging him to flee, to escape the rest area and the unknown horrors that lurked in the shadows. With a surge of determination, David turned on his heel and rushed back to his car. He jumped inside, slamming the door shut and locking it. The engine roared to life, the headlights piercing the darkness. He shifted into gear and peeled out of the rest area, the tires screeching against the pavement. As he merged back onto the highway, a sense of relief washed over him. The rest area and its unsettling whispers faded into the distance, and he focused on the road ahead. He chastised himself for letting his imagination run wild, for succumbing to paranoia in the dead of night. But just as he began to relax, he heard it. A soft, haunting melody that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere all at once. It was a tune that sent shivers down his spine, a melody that seemed to burrow into his very soul. His grip on the steering wheel tightened as the music grew louder, drowning out his thoughts. Suddenly, the road ahead began to twist and warp, the asphalt contorting like a living thing. David's heart raced as he struggled to regain control of his car, but the road seemed to have a mind of its own. Panic clawed at his chest as the scenery around him shifted, transforming into a nightmarish landscape of twisted trees and looming shadows. He tried to slam on the brakes, but the car continued to accelerate, hurtling forward at a breakneck speed. The haunting melody grew louder, the sound becoming a cacophony that seemed to echo from the very depths of his mind. His vision blurred, colors blending together in a dizzying whirl. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the music stopped. The road straightened out, returning to its normal state, and David's car screeched to a halt on the side of the highway. He sat there, his chest heaving, his mind a jumbled mess of confusion and terror. His headlights illuminated a road sign up ahead, "Rest Area 1 mile." Dread settled over him like a heavy fog as he realized he had returned to the same rest area. The feeling of being watched, the whispering voices, the haunting melody, it had all led him back to this place of nightmares. His hands trembled as he gripped the steering wheel, his breath coming in ragged gasps. A figure emerged from the darkness, its form indistinct and hazy. It walked toward the car with a slow, deliberate gait, its eyes fixed on David with an otherworldly intensity. David's heart pounded in his chest, his mind a maelstrom of fear and confusion. "Who are you?" David demanded, his voice shaking. The figure's response was a chilling smile, a grin that seemed to stretch impossibly wide. "We've been waiting for you." David's pulse raced as he stared at the figure, his mind racing to make sense of the surreal nightmare he had been plunged into. He reached for the car door, his fingers fumbling as he struggled to escape the confines of the vehicle. But before he could open the door, the figure was at his window, its hazy form pressing against the glass. "Come with us," the figure whispered, its voice a haunting echo that seemed to seep into his very soul. David's heart pounded in his chest as he stared into the figure's eyes, its gaze pulling him in like a moth to a flame. He felt a strange compulsion, an irresistible urge to obey the figure's command. And as the figure's smile widened, David's resistance crumbled. The car door swung open, and David stepped out onto the pavement, his movements controlled by a force beyond his comprehension. The figure's hazy form enveloped him, and as they walked back toward the rest area, the darkness seemed to welcome him with open arms. As they entered the rest area, David's mind was a blur of conflicting emotions, fear, confusion, and an odd sense of acceptance. He walked toward the row of picnic tables, his steps guided by the figure beside him. The shadows danced in the moonlight, casting an eerie glow that seemed to illuminate the path to his fate. The figure gestured toward the tables, and David sat down, his gaze fixed on the darkness beyond. The haunting melody began to play once more, the soft notes intertwining with the whispers that seemed to carry through the night air. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the strange pull that seemed to bind him to this nightmarish reality. And then, as the melody reached its crescendo, a feeling of euphoria washed over him. The darkness enveloped him, its embrace warm and inviting, as if he were being embraced by an old friend. The whispers grew louder, their words unintelligible, yet strangely comforting. David's heart slowed, his breathing steadying as a sense of peace settled over him. He felt as if he were floating, detached from his physical body, as if he were becoming one with the darkness itself. The world around him faded, and all that remained was the haunting melody and the whispers that echoed through his mind. In the days that followed, David's car was found abandoned at the rest area, its engine still running. A search was launched, but no trace of him was ever found. The rest area became a place of mystery and unease, a place where whispers carried on the wind and shadows danced in the moonlight. And as night fell over the rest area, the haunting melody would play once more, its notes carrying with them the secrets of a twisted ending, a tale of a man who had driven at night and become lost in the darkness forever.